Hey girl, are you a camera? Because you make me smile. This is Nacho Average episode. On this episode of Big Sexy Chat, Crystal and Murph are joined by the vivacious Victoria Nachos, and they're talking all about dating while fat. So get ready to swipe right, grab your favorite pickup lines, and podcast and chill.
Welcome back to Big Sexy Chat. We're so excited to have you here. My name's Crystal, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you.
And we have a fantastic guest today. We're so excited to talk about dating while fat. We have Victoria Nachos. Victoria, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It was so great. The first time I said to my partner, I was like, we're going to get to interview Victoria Nachos. And he was like, I just love saying her name. It's fantastic. We're glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about you. If somebody was brand new and didn't know anything about your content and what you do, please enlighten them.
So basically, I'm a sex and dating writer. I started writing about sex and dating, I want to say like 2006-ish. Really just like the peak of blog era, like just back when blogs were cool. I feel like they're coming back, but whatever. And I had ended a huge, like a really long, like a 6-year relationship had ended. And this was the first time in my life that I'd really started dating. Like, because like when you're young, you just like go to nightclubs and like meet people. And this was like, okay, we're gonna have conversations, we're gonna see what's up, it's gonna be great. And within the first maybe 4 guys I dated, the stories were just like, these are nightmares. And I was just like, I have to tell people. And also, so I have like multiple friend groups where I have like one person in each group rather than like one big group together. And I was like, well, I can't tell these stories like 8 times. So I'm just gonna write a blog and then they can read it or not, like if it's like they're not their jam, whatever. And that's really how it got started. In the beginning, I was anonymous and I stayed that way for a while because was hoping to get into grad school, and then I did. I went to Montreal for grad school, and then I kind of realized like, oh, you don't have to be like sexless and in a suit to have a career. So I became unanonymous. And then I wrote a bit for a paper, like a newspaper. I did a bit of the college paper writing, and I kind of just took a bit of time off as well, and like finished grad school. And then when I moved back to Vancouver after grad school, I started writing my first book, and then that came out, and then just sort of it came all from there. That it was just sort of it started from blogging, and it was just sort of like these stories have to be shared. That was the gist.
That's awesome. And I think, it's gotten even better in terms of, like, now I'm seeing memes and, little cuts of convo. It's a lot of fun to follow your socials.
Yeah, I do say like one of the funniest things about social media is you think you're conveying the whole story, but you're never really sure because it's like I know the whole story, so I think you have all the info. But because sometimes people will get confused what like not knowing whether I'm trying to shame someone or just being like, here's a funny thing I said to this guy. And like majority of the time, it's the funny thing. Like I'm just like, let's spread the joy. Most of the lessons could just be picked up regardless. But like it's about, spreading the joy.
Victoria, you're
Yes.
really beautiful, and you have a face and body to die for. Thank you. Yes, you can be my sacrifice. I love that.
At first I was
Awesome.
like, oh, thank you.
Because I exist for your pleasure there, dude.
Dating apps have definitely become less fun. I almost think, like, not really because, like, I don't think it's because men have caught on that they're being like mocked for their terrible behavior. Because, like, that would be the dream that they like paid attention, noticed, and then learned. But, like, I don't really think that's it. I think they just were all getting tired. But, like, back in the day, at least when they would say something, like, at least it was either like super offensive or like funny offensive, and I could like they'd say something stupid and I could respond with a joke, and at least they're like having some fun. But these days it's so boring. Like, it's just like, "Hi." And you're like, "Cool. Hey." I'm like, "Yeah, we've greeted each other. Let's move this along."
We get just the sliver of it on our Big Sexy Chat page, like people guys will mainly guys, will reach out and say, like, "Oi," or "Hi," "Hello," "Hi, fat." Like, just random, like or they'll try to put a sentence together, but it never fully forms a sentence.
Yeah.
It's wild to me, like, who in their right mind do you think has responded to you? Like, I think of, like, when people train pigeons or whatever, and it's like that one time you don't give them the treat, but they sit there and tap it thinking they're gonna get the treat,
Yeah.
but it's like, who gave you the inch? Because I wanna know who set this standard. It's pretty ridiculous. I can't even imagine the kind of stuff that you get in your in
Yeah, and also I used to fully think that it was like, okay, no shade to other women, but someone must be accepting this. Like someone must be, but I have learned that like that is the dream that men encounter something, learn like think about it and learn from it, but that I swear to God, like it is not the case. They are just so, you know, dumb. And, like because, like, I've asked them, like, but, like, they'll be like, "Do you wanna meet up right now?" And it's like, "You literally just said hello to me." Like, obviously not. Like, you can't possibly think you're hot enough that I don't need conversation at this point. And it'll be like, "Did this work? Like, this must work for you, right?" They're always like, "No." They're always like, "No, it pretty much never works. I just thought I'd shoot my shot." And it's like, "Why?" Shooting your shot makes you miss the shot. Like you could have just walked out to a put the back. I don't I don't know how to make this analogy work, but just like it's not like they are not learning, and I can't figure out why. Though it is my deepest curiosity in life to be like, why are you like this? Why are you like this?
I think you're gonna solve the mystery for all of us because has to.
I'm
I
just
mean,
gonna
I
go out on a limb
honestly
and say
don't.
genetic code.
I think it's like so much of like I think it's like there's little subsections. So it's like the guys who for lack of a better term, have like sort of a victim mentality. Like they're just like, life is never going to work out for me. Because I mean, they're basically incels, but like it's probably a larger group depending on gradations. But just who are just like, it's never going to work out for me. So I'm not going to try hard. And like they don't even realize that they're just like, it's that self fulfilling prophecy thing where it's like, I'm not going to try hard. And so, no, but it's like, it's actually incredibly easy. You can just be kind and probably just ask some questions. Like I used to think that I'm like my standards are incredibly high, and I don't mean standards in the like I'm deserving of it, but just like what I'm willing to give up my own time for is what I mean by standards. And it's like mine are incredibly high. I love being alone. So it's like you have to be incredibly interesting. But even then, I'm like, I'm not average. Like there's that confidence for you. But even just like I had very good parents who really taught me my value. Like I just have like none of my issues are like I think I should settle for less. And so it's like they don't even have like you don't actually have to be interesting. You could literally just be kind and ask questions, and I swear to God, 80% of men would have a girlfriend in a heartbeat, or at the very least, a girl willing to hook up with them. Because it's just like it's actually so easy, and that's why it's so infuriating that it's so difficult for them. Because I'm like, it's so easy, it's so unbelievably easy, and they can't do it.
And I'm looking, when I look through your content and I see the responses that you get, it's like that general high, and then the next thing is like, "Love them big
Oh
titties.
God.
I want them big titties in my face," or it's just like, that's the second introduction? Like, wait, wait.
Like, what is the like, I understand having that thought. Like, "Hey, I got them big titties." And, like, I used to have a photo on my dating profile that you could technically see my nips through my shirt, but, like, so minimal, and I'm like, "You'd have to really be looking." Everyone's looking. They're all looking. Just nothing. Every guy, and they'd be like, "Well, you put that photo up," and it's like, "Yeah, because that photo's amazing." But just like it's not that I don't want you to have that thought. It's that just like you need to be smart enough to be like, "Hmm, how is she gonna respond to that?" Like even just a conversationally in a conversation, like, what am I supposed to say to that? Be like, boy, like, yeah, they're great flotation. Like, I just, what? Like, just, and like, even if they expect, like, because I've asked, because sometimes I'm like, that's insane. Please tell me what your thought process was. I need to know because I'm just like infinitely curious about why men do what they do. And it's usually like you want it to be like, I thought like they just like thought you'd say thanks and like maybe give them a compliment back, which I get because like I am not a complimenter. I'm just also 'cause it's too soon. We haven't even met. It doesn't mean anything yet. Like I'm not going to give you a compliment about like your hairline or something. Like just none of that matters to me. Be interesting and you'll get a compliment. But yeah, like they honestly, it never even like not only are they not thinking about what would you think in response to that, they don't even know to think, I wonder what she'll think. Like that's the thing that's
Right.
missing.
Right, there's literally no thought process.
Yeah.
It's just like that instant gratification of like, "Oh, hi, big titties. What is happening here? Like,
Yeah.
why are we just throwing stuff out?" Like, especially when you're trying to approach someone in terms of dating. And, I think one of the scariest things that I would imagine going into the dating pool is that, like, those seem to be the majority of the options.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about dating apps in general. Like, which ones are the good ones to use? Which ones are the ones that, you seem to have a better response from?
So it's a good news, bad news situation. The good news is I'm optimistic for the future. But I will say, like, there has been such a like dating apps, and again, the only like data sort of set of this that I can't control is my age. So like when I started using dating apps, like fresh off the boat with Tinder, maybe, um, it was like 2000, yeah, like 6 to 9, maybe 2009, could have been 2009. I think that was like really when I hit my stride. So like back then, dating apps, like we call them all dating apps. Most of them are not for dating, but that like the branding of it tells women it's okay. You could be on this app and you might find men who respect you. Which is like that's the hardest thing to find. And then like I just feel like there's no men on dating apps that are looking for dating anymore. But, like, back at, like, 2009-ish, it wasn't so it was still absolutely possible. Like, I went on many a date. Now that said, is that because dating apps often have, like, a lower age range, and I am now that I'm 42, I'm at a much higher age range. Like, I have matched with a couple guys, and it's like, "What are you looking for?" And they'll say dating and then be like, some of them have actually mentioned the age difference, and then you're just like instant turn off. Like, you're just like, "Gross." If it's a weird like if it's a thing for you, I no longer am interested. Like you've ruined it. But so that said, so like depending on what you're looking for, there are still some great apps. Like um I and like throughout my whole sex and dating history, I've really gone through these like just real roller coaster of like what I was looking for. So like when I first started dating, and don't worry, I'll circle back to the apps in a sec. When I first started dating, it was absolutely like I'm looking for dating, and then and sort of like that was like book one, and then book two is more sort of like I would love to just like hook up with a guy, but like it was just really me sort of finding out like can I find a guy who like, just isn't a shithead. I can swear on this, right? Yeah, okay. I'm like, we're gonna be talking about vibrators. I can swear. But like who just like isn't a dick, you know? And you're just like, you should respect me as a person because I'm a person and it should have nothing to do with what I'm looking for. So after sort of like doing dating for quite a while, then when I was in Montreal, and this is so I feel it has to be related. So I'm just gonna mention when I was in Montreal, I was working as a script writer for porn. So like just like much of your research is just like watching porn all day, seeing what the other companies are doing, etc. So you can imagine I was a bit more riled up than usual. So in that time period, and I was so tired of like hookups, like disappointing hookups. And I was like, okay, how can I make sure that I get off? So for like 3 years, I just changed my Tinder, Bumble, everything, and was just like, I am looking for men who like to lick pussy and don't expect anything in return. Because it's like the amount of hookups I've had where it's like, if you don't say the don't, and I guess turns out I only recently found this out. I am a people pleaser. You wouldn't think so given how I treat many a man, but that's because by that point I'm no longer, you know, they're idiots. But so like I do get pressured very easily because, and especially as like a sex positive person, you're like, yeah, we should, and just so like having that boundary changed my life though. So like the hookups after that, phenomenal, just phenomenal. That said, then the pandemic happened and I'm back in Vancouver, which is a much more I'm just gonna be honest, fat phobic city. Like it's a very fitness related, it's just different. It's just Vancouver is probably the most fat phobic place in North America, I would say. Like even like Montreal, way less fat phobic. Like Vancouver is very fat phobic. Like and like down in Seattle though, not as much. Like it's just something about Vancouver. So my app experience does need like you have to count that in. So it's like if I went to say, Atlanta or something for a week, the apps might be very different for me. But in Vancouver, dating wise, as a 42-year-old, it's slim pickings. The slimmest of the pickings. Also, because I will say there is something to be said where just like the older you get and the more time you spend with men, the more you're like, I'm good. I'm all set. Thank you so much. But there are some great apps. So I will say Field is really great, especially if like if you're looking for what I was looking for back in Montreal, and even sometimes now, which is just like, look, I just want you to go down on me. I want to get off, and then we're done. And like we can talk as humans and everything, but like I will not be returning the favor. And sort of like, spoiler alert, they don't know this, but like if we've had, 5 or 6 encounters and I realize you're an excellent lover, I might reward you, I might get the fuck as a little treat, just that kind of thing. But like you have to prove yourself. So like Field is great for that. Hinge is I'm undecided on Hinge. So I would say the worst one these days. And I'd be interested to know like what other people say, like in terms of their cities, because I definitely find that like certain apps in certain cities work better. But I hate Bumble now. I absolutely hate it. I hate it all. If also because it like the men have caught on that you have to message first. So I get 1,000 matches, just match after match after match. And then you're like, hey, hello, hello, hey, and like even when I do something interesting, like I've tried, I'm not an actual data scientist, but ooh, do I love it. So like I'll message 10 people with something boring and then 10 people with something interesting and see if the data matches. And it's just like you end up with like one actual person who wants to match you and you're just like, what the fuck? Like what a waste of time. And it's just like, and arguably you'd be like, okay, well, if I'm serious about dating or whatever, or just like I'm an adult now, I'll pay to skip to the front of the line. I don't care. Doesn't make a difference. I've had times on Bumble where it's like if you pay this and you skip the line, you've got 80 people willing to match with you. And then I'll also at the same time, so what I did is then I paid for it and I would swipe right on some of the people and they wouldn't turn up in my matches. And I'm like, yeah, these are obviously like fake profiles that they just put on and I'm just like, it's a grift. So like back in the day, apps were so great and I'm very hopeful for like whatever comes next. But I'm just like, something has to come because basically like we gamified and both like the gamification of dating apps and sort of like the capitalism of dating apps have ruined them all. Um, so like honestly, like Field is probably my favorite. At least, and especially just for like if you're just looking to hook up, Field is great. Field will make it happen for you. And then like Tinder, honestly, I'm only on Tinder now for the jokes. Like there's never gonna be like just I mean that's a lie. I'm such a like optimist that I'm like maybe one witty guy will sneak in. I never do.
Nice.
Victoria, are there any specific for people of size?
So there is Lube Plus. The problem with being in a city that is so fat phobic is you'll get like 5 guys. Like there'll be 5 guys on there. And so it's just like so like my whole life, like back in the day, like back when we were using like plentyoffish.com, which is from Vancouver, but be like hometown pride. Though now it's a cesspool. I don't even know. But so like Woo Plus, again, like I wonder if you live in a city, like especially like a major American city, that you will get on an app like that and have like a phenomenal experience. But in Vancouver, you're gonna find like 5 guys and you don't want to date any of them. Also, the only issue I really find with like, I would love to get on an app and have it be just fat liberationists, but it's usually fat fetishists.
Right. Would you say that there's anything that like specifically helps if say you want to avoid the dating apps? Like what would that scene look like for
Oof. I mean, I'd be asking you for advice. I'm like, I don't think I've met a man in real life in like years, decades. Like, I also, I will say the pandemic did not help. Like, that really created such a almost like a vacuum that it was just like we're all more isolated, so it's even harder to just like get out there. I really wish there I wish there was an app that like I wish one of these app companies would come to me and be like, how can we make it better for people? And I'm like, first of all, make what you're looking for categories clearer, because they're always like something casual. And it's like, what does that mean to you? That means very different things to very different people. Cause it's like, I've always been a casual dater. I've never really been like, I'm looking for a life partner. So it's like, there's no option to put something like, I want to date casually, but like that men don't just read as like, oh, she wants sex. It's like, no, thank you.
Now, I'm sure that all of this really gave you good fodder for your books. But tell us, like, was there specific things that kind of led to each book? Like, were there scenarios or situations that occurred, or was it just kind of an overall, overarching sort of like, I got to talk about this dating scene sort of deal?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like man by man. No, I always I always feel bad for the men. Like on the one hand, I'm like, imagine getting left out of a book. But like I went on a date with a guy once who was like, let's have a date on the beach. And this isn't even in the book, so but like this is just kind of the gist of like what it was like. We had a date on the beach, which already like I'm a rule follower, so I was like, he was like, let's have a fire, and I was like, are you sure about that? It's illegal. And just like he was like singing to me in public, and like he got like progressively drunker over the date, which is like extra weird because I don't drink, so it's like that's fine, but like I love like have a couple cocktails, but like don't get gross and sloppy. That's like and then so like that was a god, and then even that is even the worst parts. But like that was one day. Another guy I went out with was a garbage man, and then one day he like told me about his lunch, like while we were like making out, and it was like about meat. And it was just very like you like just to imagine someone telling you the grossest story about a meal that they love, and like while you're making out, and you're just like, this is insane. Like, what are you talking about? Yes,
That's
ma'am.
bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to the guy that was singing with you, it makes me think of that scene in Barbie when Ken's singing at Barbie for like 4 hours.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like
At.
so just yeah, singing at and just like to not be able to sense that someone is uncomfortable is such a weird trait. Like, how can you not be paying attention to how comfortable they are? Oh, yeah, that was a nightmare. And he had lied about his height, and just like, oh God. And it was like one of the first dates I'd like ever been on. So it was a real, like, I wasn't prepared to be like, well, I'm gonna go because you lied. But yeah, just like all kinds of insane things. And then in the second book, I also wanted to so I will say the third book is where it gets great, because like the third book covers that like my pleasure only Montreal period. But like even in the second book, like just just like weird shit does happen to me. So like I did go on a date with a Jamaican bobsledder, and like verified like he really is, and like it was very sad, the story. Like they have like no money for the sled, so he had to stay behind, and it was a whole thing. But like I had a great time, and like the book. So I do try and like put some of the good stuff into.
Nice.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, we had lots of isolation, and there were people kind of trying to find different outlets and things to make connections. And I hear that a lot of folks kind of switched over to OnlyFans. So I'm curious what your experience has been with.
So I do have an OnlyFans. So I actually don't think there's any subscribers right now because like I never post. I'm the worst. But so I started it during the pandemic mainly because like on the one hand I was like, okay, well, maybe I should be on the apps because sometimes it takes so long to filter through people that it's like you could be months down the road before you find someone you're like, okay, I'm willing to even consider meeting in a park or something. So in that meantime, there were just so many guys who kept like asking for weird things, like pictures of my feet and they're just like it was sort of just like if you're going to be weird and sexual way too soon, I need to benefit from this. Like, it's the same way, like, men are always like, I want you to dom me. And it's like, well, let's start with financial dom because anything else is not of interest to me. Like, so
1,000%.
basically, like, started an OnlyFans where I literally was just like directing people from Tinder. And I was like, so like, I did make some money. And like, it was, but I just, even it's such a thing where it's like, so, you get a couple men who are paying, and then you're just like, I'm bored of this already now. Like, it's almost like I just, though I love the idea of OnlyFans. If you enjoy it, my God, get yours, girl. Get yours. The biggest problem for me is that I'm just like, I'd rather watch TV. Like it was absolutely me making it a flop after a while because I'm just like not enough. And also, you start to be like, honestly, you don't deserve these toes.
What about tips for men? Like, maybe you need to write a book about that. Like, y'all, here's like the bare minimum. Make sure you check in on the person. Do they look uncomfortable? Are they shying away from you? Check their body language. Like, that seems like there needs to be a helping book out there for them.
Absolutely. So I have thought about writing a book that's just like dating tips for men. I've also thought of being like by Charlie Bobker or something, like because I will say I think the men who need the most help are unfortunately the same men who like won't take advice from a woman, which I find insane because I'm like, I don't want to ask women about men. I want men to tell me about men because I feel like they are in it, like it's just like go to the source. But yeah, also because I honestly think the majority of men, their issue is like so easily solvable. Like it's that thing where it's like, okay, what are the things that keep possibly men from wanting to date me? And it's like most of them are unsolvable. My age, can't fix that. My weight, can't fix that. Just like all these things that are like, and it's just like men, it's like you could just ask her some questions, just like have a little interest in her as a person. And you'll probably get to bond. Like pay attention to cues. Does she look uncomfortable? Is she leaning in? Is she leaning away angrily? And it's just like it's actually so easy, and it's just I don't know why they make it so difficult. My only like working theory is that it's such a and again, like, well, we're in a safe space. I don't need to be like it's not all men. It's implied. We know. I think it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in that their unfortunately senses of selves are so like fragile. Like their confidence is so fragile and not there that they purposely act poorly so as to not get rejected for being vulnerable. The irony of which is, my God, just be vulnerable. We love it. Except with the exception of like too soon, which is like an easy skill to learn. Just to be like, what if you haven't met in person, don't tell her about all your health conditions that are getting you sad. Like it's like have some common sense.
It's kind of like that when I was a kid, don't let my parents know I'm really good at washing the dishes, because guess what? I'm gonna have to wash the dishes all the time. Maybe
Yeah.
they try to set the bar real low for themselves, so they know no matter what they do, they're gonna look better than how they start.
Yeah. The other crazy thing about it's like I've never met a man who didn't overestimate my interest in him. Like, the other thing is, like, media is just such a problem for me in dating. Like, every man is just like, "Oh, but I don't want a relationship." And you're just like, "Settle down, bro. I have a master's degree. I'm not just gonna fall in love with you. Like, who are you?" Like, you're no, it's just like it's so wild. Like, it's like they have such little confidence and then also way too much. Like, it's just I don't know. They're
Do you
hopeless.
think at all that that has to do with, you being fat? Like, is there any part of that where you feel like maybe the concept of that is just like, I just wanna hook up, like, I don't want anything more because, this is, I'm gonna have to introduce you to people. I'm curious, I think our listeners would probably be, like, having that question in mind.
Yeah. So it's such a complex thing because, like, on the one hand, absolutely, 100%. I absolutely think men view fat women as, I also think it in terms of like how little they try, because my God, the not only is it terrible to be rejected by a woman I wanted, but imagine if that woman is fat and then she rejects me. That said, so it's like on the one hand, yes. Yes, I think that is why specifically in this moment, this man is treating me less than. However, over the course of the last like 20 years and just like the amount of women I've spoken to, and it's sort of like men treat women terribly for a variety of reasons. And you could latch onto that it's like he's treating me bad because I'm fat. But it's like another woman will be like, he's treating me bad because I'm black. He's treating me bad because I'm disabled. He's treating me bad because I'm super hot and he thinks it's fun. Like it's just like, like Beyonce got cheated on. So it's like it is this thing where it's like bad things happen to women by men all the time. And on the one hand, it's helpful to think about it that way, but I also think it's like don't latch onto it because it's like that's the reason he's doing this shitty thing to you, but like he's doing shitty things to everyone for whatever reason. That said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Back when I was dating, I remember this whole concept was like, you're on apps, you're so hot, you're so hot, you're so hot. Then you say, "No, thank you, you fat bitch."
Yes. Yes, the pipeline from "you're so hot, I want you so bad" to "fuck you, you fat bitch" is real. That's just an inch of a pipe. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, honestly, which is so crazy to me because it's like, I can't ever imagine like, if someone rejected me, the idea of insulting them for the very thing I just like, how does that even connect in your brain? Like, aren't you immediately like, "Well, I'm a hypocrite?" Like, it's just like yeah. The only thing that like, I will say so, like, because of I've been fat, like, my whole life. Like, it's not like I didn't get fat in adulthood, so I didn't, learn like, it's like I've known about the fat stuff forever. And, yeah, like, men will just say the worst things, but the part that really bothers me is actually the cognitive dissonance. Like, it's not even I'm just like, "I don't get it." Like, I am fat, like, excellent assessment, you know? But it's just like, oh, and I just find it scary because 'cause I'm always like, "Oh, man, you're gonna run into some 22-year-old fat girl who is not does not have enough shields up, and that's gonna" like, the shitty things men have said that burrow in your brain and stay there for 20 years is, something else. But, yeah. But I do
What
think
would you
sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but I do like men. I also, again, like my theory is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that they use little things about you to push you further away so that like they're not the one who's choosing something. You know what I mean? Like that guy, like recently this happened with this guy, and he was just like I mean, Christ, I don't even think he was that young. Like, I think he was like 10 years younger than me, but like 32. Like, I'm like 42 and 32 is not hugely different. Like, especially because it's like you haven't asked if I like have kids, want kids, whatever, which is like, don't for all of the above. But I felt the need to be like, obviously there's an age difference, so like it wouldn't really, and you're just like, what? Like that's a you thing. That's not an everybody thing. But I think it was one more thing that I was like, okay, you're older, so I need to keep you, and you're fat, so I need to keep, and it's just, but I try not to take that shit on though.
Is it kinda like, "Let me reject you first before you reject me?"
I think so, or just like, I wanna set the bar. I mean, I don't, again, because I'm like, if I haven't asked for something, it seems bonkers to me that you think an adult woman needs to be, like, warned, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, if I'm going out with someone, I'm not like, "Oh, good, this is gonna be a relationship." I'm like, "Let's see if you could be interesting enough that I wanna see you a few times," you know? And so it seems so weird to me that they're like, that they would like do these little pre-rejections, except because it does eventually work. Like I stopped talking to that guy. I didn't even respond about why. I was just like, okay, I'm not interested in you. And but I do think it could be this like self-protection thing, but it's such a societally, like it's so prolific across like so many men. So I do think I think it's a fat thing. I think it's a age thing. I think it's a self-protection thing. I think they've just got a lot of problems. And again, final thing though, I don't think any man who is looking like, I actually, I don't think there are, I mean, obviously there could be like 10, but like as a majority, any man on a dating app right now, unless they've found some app like, I mean, Match is shit. Don't ever use Match. But like, if they're on some app that is like very specifically for dating, they're just looking to hook up. They may eventually date you if like, but like they are just looking for a hookup, and women are just trying to be like, could you keep it a little more open? And it's just like, but I think that's the big problem, that like men are not on the apps looking for dating.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and we'll come back around to it, but I'm curious the questions from our audience, Crystal, that, we mentioned that we were going to talk about dating, and this has been like one of the largest topics that our group has been, tell us more. And we're none of us are in the dating scene, and so it's so nice and refreshing to have this conversation because, I mean, we could probably have a round two with how many questions, but Crystal, do you wanna run through some of the questions that our folks have asked?
Yeah, sure. The one thing, what kind of photo do you put in your profile, especially if you're a fat person? I think you should put a picture of yourself very fat in the picture, but I would love to hear what you have to say about that. And
Yeah.
then, how do you turn off your mean girl, and how do you find your confidence? Is it okay to stalk his socials?
So okay, let's start the photo. So I am a big like, show your joy, like show your best photos. And like I don't just mean like a selfie where you're smiling. Like you do want to try and find some photos where you didn't know the photo was getting taken, and like you're just, being joyful, because it's like, even like, I know it's not the same. Like they have done some studies that like, I don't know, that say sometimes men are more attractive when they're not smiling. I find it psychotic. I'm like, if you're not smiling in every photo, I don't want to meet you. You seem like an angry person. But for me, for women, I think it's like, it's a tough, I'm undecided on this of whether or not you should. So I absolutely, sorry, just to backtrack for a sec, the fattest photos of you. Do not hide anything, because the amount of stress that you feel before, like that everyone, no matter what their size, feels before a first date is already a lot. But add to that, you're unsure if he knows how fat you are. And also, like, that would be, to have someone be like, but actually, even if they rejected you right off the bat, I think it would be like, hey, fair, whatever. My biggest fear is that you're like on the second date and they're still just like, "Oh, I didn't think she was this fat," or something like that. Like that's but so I'm just like, the fatter the better, because then no matter what, you can just show up and you're just like, I'm having a great day. Like one thing I started, I basically stopped wearing makeup in the last like 5, 6 years. And so I always try and make sure I have at least one photo where I'm not wearing makeup. So it's like, this is what you're getting. And I will say, I'm not doing it for them. Like, I don't really care. Like, but it's like the stress that you feel before you meet someone is so much less if you're just like, oh, I showed everything, so we're fine. Now, that said, the thing I was going to say that I'm undecided on is whether or not you should post a like sexy, super sexy photo, you in a bathing suit, you in a bikini, any of that. On the one hand, I love it. And I will say, I personally do it. Still not sure if it's the right call, but I do it. Again, for the same reason, because I'm like, I don't want to accidentally have all my photos of me in, say, a dress, and you don't know that I have an apron belly. Because I have gone on a date with someone who, and it's actually it's in the second book, Dating Well Feminist, which I was going to title Dating Well Fat, but I thought it might alienate some non-fat purchasers. So yeah, I went on and like he like found out I had an apron belly. Definitely did not go well. I was out of there real quick. But so like I don't want a situation like that. And on the one hand, you might get a bunch of like nice nips and I love the titties, et cetera, et cetera. But it's sort of like I used to believe that like those guys like just accidentally got carried away. Like this is the one time they just couldn't contain themselves. My tits are just so great. They had to talk about them. But it's like that's not true. This man has just saved you a bundle of time and effort. So, it's that thing where it's like, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of comments that you're like, what the fuck? But then you can just easily be like, unmatched, goodbye. Save me. So it can go both ways. But like I personally am like sexy show everything. I want you to be able to see the dimples in my thighs. I want you to be able to see everything because I just want to show up to a date and have fun and not be stressed that you're disappointed in how I showed up. Because also it's like that. So then with the inner critic, I will say I don't have that inner critic that much. I'm mostly just like this is me. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, there's no, and then that might be something that comes with age. Maybe it's the work I did on myself. I actually think so. Yeah, during the beginning of my like fat liberation comeuppance or learning period, it was actually a thin woman who started that journey for me. And the reason is it's this woman. Do you know the slum flower? Oh, okay. You gotta check her out. She's amazing. But she is a thin woman with her words, saggy titties. And she used to hashtag saggy boobs matter. And because I've done a lot of weight cycling in my life, lose 80 pounds, gain 80 pounds, lose 80 pounds, just back and forth. So like I have real saggy titties. Like they're huge, but they're pancakey. And that is an inner critic thing for me that I'm like, oh, what if he doesn't like them? And then you're like, who gives a shit what he likes? He'll take what he gets. But so like because a thin woman was going through the same thing as me, it really was just like, oh, we all just need to shut that shit down. Because I'm like, this is bullshit. If you can't even be free of this when you're thin, my God, we got to get rid of it. So like for me, I do find it easier to shut the critic down just because I mean, again, I think it might just be my age and the amount of like time I've spent in the space that I'm just like, who gives a shit? You're gonna hate me or love me, and that's on you. So, the last question about should you stalk their social media? One of the like I would say absolutely. I love to know more. The only problem with that is, you know, I actually I find it difficult. Like it used to be a lot easier back in the day. These days, I find that a lot of people are better at like keeping their stuff hidden. And like so I personally I mean, I'm very good at sort of like assessing safety, but like I wouldn't find out someone's last name before a date unless yeah, like that would be pretty rare. That said, I am definitely I don't want to say a danger proponent, that's too wrong, but like I play it a little loosey goosey. I will say finally that there's a benefit to being fat is I worry less about my safety in certain ways. So I might be more worried that a man might spit on me or something in public, but like I'm not so worried he's going to murder me because he'd have to drag my body somewhere, and that's going to be difficult. So like as long as I'm meeting someone in a public place, I'm not even really concerned about my safety. However, I do think some other women should be.
What about, do you Google their phone number? Do you get each other's phone numbers before you go on a date? Do you tell people where you're gonna be? How do you do all that?
So absolutely, I would not meet someone straight from Tinder, if only because yeah, like that. I will say that absolutely just feels like a, oh, I better double check, but and then again, I think a lot of it is like experience based. So when I first started dating, absolutely. I'm like, here's his picture. Here's where we're going. If I haven't texted you by 11, you know something has gone awry. Just blah, blah, blah. So, like, I definitely do that. And, like, back in the day, I absolutely would have. I used to absolutely ask men for their Facebooks. But, like, it's sort of like in the last 10 years, I'm like, I'm not even sure they'd have a Facebook. And I'm also sort of like because as a writer, the big thing for me, so like if I was just a average Joe, I would absolutely be more likely to exchange socials, exchange anything like that. The problem for me is if I give them my, even my real name, because like my books are under my real name, Victoria Young. Um, like I worry too much that they'd like find out who I am and then not want to go out. But, yeah, so I definitely get their phone number though, for sure. That would be a for sure. And I don't think I've Googled, I usually just start Googling if they behave poorly.
I did have a friend who's in the dating scene, and she started doing the Google check before going out. And a guy had moved from Colorado to Ohio, and he was being charged for molesting a corpse in
Mhm.
Colorado. And I was when she shared that, she was like, "I'm taking a big break from dating right now." Like, because it was just, holy shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm sure you have stories like that too, like crazy.
Yeah. I usually get more like hateful stuff, but just like if you can find the information, absolutely. And like I am a bit of an online sleuth, but I do find that it's harder in this day and age than it was like a decade ago. I guess I'm not really looking for things about safety. I am looking for things like I am looking for red flags, which is like yeah, like I guess technically the corpse thing. I mean, he's probably only into dead bodies, so you're fine.
My girlfriend, is a closer, we'll just say. When she goes out and about, she closes very, very, very
I
successfully.
love that.
And, she sends my girlfriend and me a picture of their driver's license. And sometimes it'll be like 2:30 in the morning, and then at 4:30 we'll get another one. I'm like, "Okay, but now we know how to find them." So I was like, "That's pretty smart," but I don't know if it's necessary, but these guys all do it because they wanna get they wanna have their fun. But the last question, I think we probably need to wrap it up, and Murph, I don't know if you have any others, but the other question people were asking is how do we prepare ourselves to make conversation? And how do we help people dating us to make conversations
Okay, so first question, are you asking like on the apps or in person? Like when you're meeting or like on the app?
once you're finally on your first date?
Okay. I mean, ooh, so this is hard for me to offer advice because I'm just sort of like, I'm a big proponent of like, you're just building off small talk. Like, how's your day going? Great. And like, if they say, like, you just want to be a good listener because either they're going to say something boring, like, yeah, it's fine, it was great, it's whatever. Or they're going to say, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened today and play off that. But like, if they're boring, okay, next step. It's just ask simple questions. What do you do for work? Do you enjoy that? Do you have any siblings? Like, I am not someone who thinks the questions itself really matter. It's about can you like find fun in that? So it's like, I like some people are like, oh, asking about work is boring. And I'm like, well, I'll be honest. I've dated a lot of guys with really cool jobs. And honestly, most of the time, that's the most interesting thing about them. So I tend to be like, yeah, tell me more about that. Like it's like neuroscientists, the Jamaican bobsledder, just like things like that. So it's like I also think it's okay to like if you're someone who's really nervous about that, write yourself some questions. Just write them down on paper. Even if you hit question 3 and you can't remember what it said, go to the bathroom. Like, life does not have to be that stressful. Like, I think most of the dating stuff has more to do with, you know, people who like don't really want to be there almost. Like a lot of the stuff on the apps, we're all just like too busy, don't care, whatever. But like once you're meeting in person, I really think it's like if you're meant to connect, you'll connect. And if you're not meant to, you won't. Like even in like the long-term relationships I've had, I'm like, you could have said something real stupid on the first, wouldn't have mattered. You just carry on. But like, yeah, so honestly, listening and then I would say being prepared to give longer answers. Like if someone asks you, what is your job? Don't just say, I'm a writer. Say, like, be prepared to talk about that. You're just like, you have to be able to, even if you're worried, like I just found out I might have ADHD, which you may have noticed given how I talk. But just to not worry about that stuff that like if you connect like if you're going to connect with someone especially dating wise I don't think a lot of it matters like you can make little mistakes you don't need to be worried about that and also like I've never had a man make a little mistake on a date and me be like well this is over like it's always like little mistake weird mistake big mistake huge mistake okay let's get the bill so it's like I think the conversation thing is just like be confident, be interesting, be ready for give and take. Like that's the biggest thing, give and take. It's okay to ask them the same question that like back and forth. That's just get it going.
Right. Oh, that's solid. Um, my last question is kind of a best of and the worst of. So like what's the best thing about dating while fat and what's the worst thing about dating while fat?
Um, I mean, the worst is I think it's the self-doubt. Like I think for years I would put the onus of any slight rejection, shitty thing said on the fact that I was fat until I really understood that, like, you might be getting treated shitty because you're fat, but that same person is treating other people shitty for whatever specific hurt they've got as well. And like that sucks. And so, but that said, society wise, the worst part is just that, like, men are so conditioned to view women as like a trophy for them that I think a lot of them miss out on like great connections. That it's like your soulmate might be a fatty, like you're really missing out on life if you could just and also like they're attracted to you. It's just the fact that they're just like so like weak of character that they could never stand up to their friends and be like, don't say that shitty thing about my beautiful girlfriend or whatever. And then the best is probably I have had some women say they've tried the similar thing as me, just being like looking for guys who like to lick pussy and expect nothing in return, and it has worked out great for them. The only thing I've never asked any of them if they were fat ladies as well. Like it just, I don't know, it never occurred to me. I was just like, good, great, get yours. But that said, I would be interested to know work as well for thin women because there is something like men, and again, it could be because I do have very like I think I like to call it big dick energy, but I might just be like an abrasive bitch, but just like I think I have a real like I don't give a fuck. This is what I want. If you're not into it, get the fuck out. So like men read that as dominant, and you know, I think that made it easier for me to be like to find the guys because the same guys who are looking for that are also like just want to be dominated. And this is a way to do that without me making it about them. Because that's my biggest thing with like anytime a guy's like, I want you to dom me, and it's like how I want to or how you want to, because that then becomes about you. But yeah, so the best part I think is it does make that easier to just be like, it's gonna be all about me. I hope you're cool with that.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, the question that we always end our podcast with is one that can be a bit revealing. So we've kind of softened it a little bit over the last couple years. So we used to say, "What's your favorite sex toy?" But now we say, "What's your favorite sex toy or sexual aid?" So maybe something that kind of gets you in the mood, or something that makes you feel sexy. So whatever you feel most comfortable with. I'm imagining you're going to be
Yeah.
sweet.
I will just do a quick little thing because you said, what's their favorite thing to feel sexy? And I want to say, I think so many women expect like their bodies to get to where they want them to real quick. And like, if a man is coming over to pleasure me, I will absolutely throw on a little porn and just, especially one with a story, maybe one that I wrote, and just, get in the mood. So I just want to say to everyone, that is a great thing to do. You don't have to wait for him to get there to start, get yourself sensual, get into the groove. That's what I will absolutely tell you my favorite sex toy. But I just want to say, check the company's safety. I don't know what this is not actually a sex toy, but I have a Theragun. And that has been life changing. If also because I just want to, and like, I know you were worried I wouldn't be like, I'll reveal all. I've found that with the Theragun, I can actually get what I would call the like G spot orgasm as well as the clitoral one. So it's basically like, yeah, like it's really giving her. And then also, I think it's great because then, you can just work on your calves after. But yeah, Theragun for life, baby. They
I
should
love
they should
that.
sponsor me.
Especially because they have that little travel one too that you
Oh
could,
yeah.
like, take
Oh
with
yeah.
you that's, a
Yeah.
little more
But
discreet. No.
fair warning to everyone, use within your own limits. Test first, safety first, I don't want you to burn your clit off.
Right. No, I do love it as a good, like, vulva massager, like,
Hmm.
I never realized how much tension
Yeah.
there is, like, just around, like, the inner part of your pelvis and just being able to hit it with the Theragun. Oh, man. Yeah, like, sometimes I'll just be like, "Honey, I don't need to come, I just need you to, like, around the edges, like, can you do that?" It works.
Yeah. I actually heard about it from like I had a Theragun, but didn't think to do this myself. And then I was listening to Nicole Byers' podcast, and she, I think, was joking about it, but I was like, and it's been great.
They say
That is
anything's a sex toy if you're brave enough, right?
Exactly.
This was so fun, Victoria. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Having
we had a
me.
great time. So tell everyone where they can find you and the names of your books, where you'd prefer that they purchase those, all that fun stuff.
You can find me probably the easiest is just Instagram at Victoria Nachos. I'm not, yeah, I guess I ditched Twitter after Elon. So and like I'm on Threads, but again, same Victoria Nachos. Pretty much anywhere is Victoria Nachos. My two books. The first one is they don't have to be read like one before the other, but they are chronological. So if you read Love Poems for Butchers, it's not poetry, short stories about sex and dating, orgasms, jizz, the whole shebang. So that's called Love Poems for Butchers. And my second book is called Dating Well Feminist. And they are both, I mean, basically, Amazon has the monopoly on shipping. So it's like, just buy them from Amazon. Like, and that's the easiest. Or if you know me in person, pick up a copy from me. But otherwise, it's like, just get it from Amazon because it would cost me more to ship it to you, etc. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it. So my two books, and then hopefully the third book will be the real page turner when things get good. But yeah, so they're basically like part, you'll cry, you'll laugh, you'll be disappointed, you'll be excited. It's a whole range of just like dating. It's a roller coaster.
And your website, victorianachos.com, that has links to everything.
Yes. Oh, and also I
Perfect.
do have I have a Substack, which is just like Victoria Nachos as well, but I think it's like substack.victorianachos.com. I post free newsletters. I also post paid stuff, but I will just say to anyone, so the paid stuff is basically the stories from my book, but if you were to subscribe now, you would still buy the book, like it's sort of like depending on when you subscribe, it's better.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, so you all can find us on the socials, except for Twitter, for the same reason. Fuck Elon Musk. Um, at Big Sexy Chat. And if you want to send us an email, you can do so at sexy@bigsexychat.com. And we love it if you tell your friends, if you like, if you subscribe, if you write a review, if you share, just click on the content. If you post something on Facebook, make it for words in as a comment, and that gets us a better algorithm. Just all the nonsense that goes with that. We'd appreciate that. And we want to thank you so much, Victoria. I'm sure that we're going to have a second go around and bring you back on and have more conversation, because I have a feeling once this hits, everybody's going to be like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? So we will be in contact with you and keep you close by. But I'm going to start out by saying, see you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.
See you soon, you big beautiful baboon.